Hello, my name is Daniel Burrows, and today we're going to look at my SOS kit for the suffrage and Odyssey of the vote. Over time, I'm going to relate both the 15th and 19th Amendment and look at how America has progressed or regressed in the Odyssey of the vote. So here's the wiki that I developed. So in the wiki, you can find the essential question here, our analysis scaffolding toolkit, the sources we use, and then the references for all the different sources that I found. Down here is the third order sources. We have a YouTube video and some outside articles. So right now, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the scaffolding toolkit over here and the sources over here. So starting off again, the essential question we have is, how has the struggle for the right to vote evolved over time? I tried to pick an essential question that would really transcend the 15th and 19th Amendment and get to the heart of the suffrage movement and what all suffrage movements have in common. So our first order source is going to be the Seneca Falls Convention by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Right here we have the Declaration of Sentiments in 1848. And this is a modified version because it is a little long. Some of the wording is a little higher level. So just so all level learners will be able to comprehend and read it, maybe adjust for time, but we do have a little long excerpt here. And the pre-reading, before we get into the reading, we have write down any words, feelings, emotions, etc. that you think about when you hear the words voting or voting rights. Hopefully this leads to a pretty good class discussion. The idea is to get students thinking about why people have the vote, what kind of voting role plays for democracy, and should citizens have the right to vote. Something that could be a good Socratic seminar using the articles I have later is under what circumstances should citizens have the vote? Should voter IDs laws be legal? For instance, should ex convicts or people who have been in prison, should they have the right to vote? Is the voting age good? Should we vote on Tuesdays in November? All these different things. This is a good starting point before we get into the meat of the lesson. So as students read this source, starting with this, we hold these truths to be self-evident, they need to be highlighting. They're looking for the main arguments of women's suffrage here. The other thing that they should be doing is underlining any important messages. So their main arguments are going to be more or less found throughout and towards the beginning and the end here. But also, I would like students to be drawing, annotating the text, doing a closed reading, going back to it. And towards the side here, they could even draw faces with emotions, describing the emotions of the women at the convention, what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, what they're trying to convey, what they're trying to have, what their message, what the emotion of the message is. So it could be, not just simple, happy, sad faces, maybe a little bit more complex. That way, when they go back, they can see like, oh, okay, these were the feelings of the time. After reading, there's a chart here, and then we have some understanding questions here. The chart, really, I want students to be able to use the text to support their answers, in their own words, and then from the text. So, in their own words, what's the main argument of the speech? In their own words, how have women been treated? So, Elizabeth Stanton lists right here in the middle all these different grievances with women over the history of their, of womanhood. So summarize those. And in what ways would the right to vote solve the issues listed below? This is, more of an opinion. But again, use evidence from the text to support their own view. Going down here, we have some more contextualization, periodization, looking at this overall. For instance, we're starting to relate the two movements. what, in her opinion, is citizenship and how does it differ from previous time periods. So now we're starting to get into um, bridging the 15th and 19th Amendment and black suffrage and women's suffrage and suffrage today. Should there be restrictions on who can vote? What evidence suggests women's suffrage movement is a global issue? So we're contextualizing not just locally but globally. And here we're using periodization. So, for instance, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Why would we be, why would the speech be connecting back to this revolutionary time period? Why go back to, the founding fathers and the Declaration of Independence and all these other things? What's the point of that? So the main reason we're using this as our first order source is because these grievances fairly articulate the whole idea of suffrage, not just for women but for all. So it's a good starting point. And now we're going to go on to our second order sources down here. Just a brief overview, and then we'll get a little bit more into it. But our second order sources, we have an excerpt from Frederick Douglass, and then an excerpt from Susan B. Anthony. Both of these are a little shorter, a little easier to read, and these would be your pro arguments for the various suffrage movements. And then we have some con arguments or against anti-suffrage. One from President Johnson, Andrew Johnson, about why he wants to veto, black suffrage. And then we have one from John A. Moon about why he also does not want women to have the right to vote. So these arguments are a little bit apart in history, but the whole idea here is to start bridging that, contextualizing that, and using periodization to put the two arguments together. So this would be the before would just be introducing the topic and understanding that these are arguments. During, what students are going to be doing during this activity would be with a partner. Partner A would be reading the Douglas and the Johnson, and partner B would be reading Anthony and Moon. So you have black suffrage and women's suffrage, and then fill in the graph, and then come together the after. So after they read, come together, and this is sort of like a Venn diagram, and using a discussion, using this chart up here, the students together will say, how are these movements different and how are these movements similar? So how are the arguments against them similar? How are the arguments against them different? Even though these take place in two different time periods, what's going on that connects the issues? And then how are they unique? So this really contextualizes just these written sources, and then we're going to have another second order, which is going to be some political cartoons down here. So first we have a suffragette's home right here. This is called the Democratic ticket. In the text down here it says, you're as free as air, ain't you? Say you are, I'll blow your black head off. Then we have the Spirit of 76 and these like cherub looking cupids kind of. And then we have this the first vote from Harper's Weekly. So using these four political cartoons and images, students before just get an idea of what these are going to be doing. During, using the 5 W's and H for each one. With a partner, talk about who is being shown, what's happening, where is this taking place, where would this have been published, why was this made, when, how does this relate to the suffrage movement. So this is more of a dialogue discussion, but then this chart can help organize what does this image show about the suffrage movement. So two of these are going to be, again, the pro, and two of these are going to be the con. So this would obviously be an argument against, and then you have a couple arguments for. So women's suffrage, black suffrage, black suffrage. And just to point out some of the themes, so we have the patriotism, again, that spirit of 76, that spirit of the revolution. So afterwards, we have these questions. So what emotions are being used? How are the different time periods showing people voting? Why would suffrage movement for women and men, or sorry, and the black suffrage movement, why would they show patriotism? Why would they try to be shown patriotism? And then what evidence suggests that they did not fully get the right to vote, even when they had it? Like this, and to an extent, this cartoon here. And then lastly, so after this is second order, really developing the arguments for and against. First order, again, developing the whole point of the vote, why it's important to a democracy, why people want it, why some people did not have it, and what that fight looked like. And then again, the pro and the cons for both and how they relate to each other over time. And then our third order, we have this contextualizing, comparing to modern times. So here, couple different links. I'm actually going to go back to the wiki, but the question overall is going to be, what are the arguments for or against North Carolina's voter ID law relating to the suffrage movement? So now we're pulling these arguments from history. We're going to apply them, compare them, and see what's going on today and how this right to vote has evolved over time, or not. Maybe it's regressed. So down here we have a video from PBS. This is a YouTube link. You can get it off the wiki space here. Then we have 4 different articles summarizing and relating. We have an NPR article, Washington Post, and then New York Times. All of these are dealing with the very, very recent North Carolina voter ID law that a federal court has struck down. So for instance, this New York Times article, this really relates it to all these. It says North Carolina is kind of a hub for all these voter ID laws, and they're really making a statement. The argument for and against, I'm not trying to be political here. I want students to use historical analysis to support or disprove an argument. And then lastly, here's this video.
Now another major
it's about 6 minutes.
Voting law.
Tried to find the least biased news sources, but there still is bias that exists. So that discussion definitely should be had. And this right here would make for a very good summative assessment, especially if you're relating to past suffrage movements. So how do they relate or not? Are they similar? Are they different? And then overall, this screencast-o-matic, I'm going to embed that here. And then lastly, we have my sources. So we have a couple different types of primary sources or original historical sources. Some written, some longer text, and some political cartoons, some visuals. Harper's Weekly. This is actually a postcard. This was a postcard, and this was just a more of a cartoon than anything. So here are the references. Most of the sources came from Library of Congress. I had a bunch. Stanford website, a couple of different university websites. Missouri I used down here, and where's the other? Yeah, this Wichita State website too, and a few New York Times. So instead of trying to specifically just show the 15th and 19th Amendment, students more have an idea, going back to this essential question of why do we have the right to vote, and how has that struggle for that right to vote evolved over time. A follow-up lesson, a good next step, would definitely be into restrictions to voters, and maybe more detail for that. I would say a research, maybe an independent research, to see if the 15th and 19th Amendment were successful or not. All right, have a good day, and all these references and resources will be up on the wiki space. Thank you.